common belief is the doctrine of the Trinity is a total Christian invention. Before the rise of Christianity, early Jews never thought of or considered the idea of a multi-personal God, and only thought of God as a unified single figure. Christians either made up the Trinity to explain how Jesus revealed himself, or they stole it from paganism. But this is simply not true, and if you study early Jewish writings, you will see that many authors wrestled with the idea of three powers in the Old Testament who all seem to be God. In the past, we looked at several of these passages and demonstrated how the Trinity doctrine was not an invention of the New Testament, but was taught overwhelmingly throughout the Old Testament as well. Many ancient Jews and Jewish scholars today have recognized this, like Jewish scholar Benjamin Sommer.
This is actually an old ancient Near Eastern idea, that is an old Semitic idea that is popping up again among those Jews who were the founders of Christianity. And we Jews have always tended to sort of make fun of the Trinity. Oh, how can there be three that is one? Really, they're pagans. They're not real monotheists like we Jews are, or like the Muslims are. Those Christians are really pagan. But I think that what we're seeing from what I've been saying in the past couple days is that, the idea of the Trinity, that there is this one God who manifests itself in three different ways, that's actually an old ancient Near Eastern idea that can function in a polytheistic context, as it did for the Babylonians and the Canaanites, but it can also function in a monotheistic context, as it does, I think, in the J and the E texts and some of the other texts that we were looking at. In fact, to say that 3 is 1, heck, the Kabbalah is going to go further than that. They say 10 is 1, and actually when you get to Luriana Kabbalah, and there's the idea that within each of the Sefirot, each of the 10 Sefirot has 10 Sefirot within it, so that we've got 100 different Sefirot, really. We're taking this reasoning much, much farther than the Christians did. So actually, one of the more radical conclusions that I came to, much to my own surprise, when I was writing this book, and this is not at all what I had intended to do, because in various ways that we could discuss if you're interested, I'm actually rather uncomfortable with my own conclusion here, but as a scholar, I gotta call them as I see them. One of the conclusions that I came to my shock, when I finished this book, is that we Jews have no theological objection to the doctrine of the Trinity. I came to the conclusion that we Jews have no theological right to object to the Trinity. Theologically, I think that the model of the Trinity is an old, ancient Near Eastern idea that shows up in the Tanakh, and that in a different way shows up in Jewish mysticism as well.
As Dr. Sommer points out, there are clear passages in the Old Testament where there are different persons or powers of God who are distinct, yet still the one God. Early Jews also recognized this nature about God and wrote concerning it. To be fair, not all of them interpreted these passages the same way a Christian Trinitarian does, but they do recognize the existence of other powers alongside God and multiple powers that are all God. For example, in the Talmud, there is a passage where the author is debating with a Jewish Christian who pointed to Exodus 24:1, where God says to Moses, "Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel." The Jewish Christian was arguing, it is odd that God said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord," instead of "come up to me," and it is likely there were different persons of one God. Now the rabbi in response could have just said that the usage is not unusual, but the rabbi instead replies that God was actually speaking of a different power in heaven, namely the Metatron, the highest of all angels, who also had the same name as God. So the early rabbis recognized the Torah taught there were different figures, all called the Lord. This correlates to what we said when we went over the Trinity in the Old Testament, that there is a divine figure who is also the Lord, known as the angel of the Lord. People often say, well, he must just be a created being because he is an angel. But remember, as we pointed out last time, the word angel in Hebrew just means messenger, not a divine figure. Human messengers were called angels in Genesis. To be an angel just meant you were a messenger. So calling this figure the angel of the Lord doesn't mean he is also one of the created angels as we know them, just a messenger from the Lord, who is also called the Lord. Jewish scholar Nahum Sarna recognizes this and says, from several texts, it is clear that the demarcation between God and his angel is often blurred. At the Exodus from Egypt, it is now God, now his angel, who goes ahead of the Israelite camp. Another interesting thing that the Jewish Targums do is distinctly say someone known as the Memra of the Lord is a distinct figure from the Lord, but who also has the same attributes as the Lord.